Some horrors aren't born from monsters in movies. They come from real life, from people who lurk in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tonight on Bleeding Walls, we bring you 9 true stories of terror, survival, and resilience. Real accounts of individuals who faced the unimaginable, a nightmare that almost killed them. These are not fictional tales. They are raw, chilling, and haunting experiences that reveal the darkest corners of human behavior. As you listen, remember, these stories are real. They are reminders to stay vigilant, to trust your instincts, and to never take safety for granted. If you're new here, welcome to Bleeding Walls. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week we bring you terrifying true horror stories that will shake you to your core. Brace yourself, and let's begin. Wadapiku. The Stranger in the Alley. Emma had just finished her late shift at a downtown cafe. The streets were quiet, the city's usual bustle replaced by the occasional distant honk of a taxi, or the echo of a lone pedestrian's footsteps. She preferred walking home. It was only a 15-minute journey. But that night, the shadows seemed longer, darker, and more oppressive. As she turned down a narrow alley that cut the distance in half, Emma noticed a figure leaning against the brick wall at the far end. At first, she thought it was another late-night worker heading home, but something about the way he stood, too still, too deliberate, made her heart race. Instinct whispered at her to turn back, but she rationalized it. The alley was familiar. She had walked it countless times before. She quickened her pace, keeping her bag close to her body. The figure didn't move. Halfway down, he stepped forward, blocking her path. His presence was sudden, jarring, and Emma froze. "Hey there," he said casually, a tone that tried to sound friendly but carried a sinister edge. "Don't be scared." Emma shook her head, trying to step around him, but he reached out, grabbing her wrist with a grip that was firm and unyielding. Panic surged. "Let me go!" she shouted, struggling against him. He didn't release her. Instead, he leaned closer, his breath foul, whispering, "You won't go anywhere." Emma's mind raced. The alley was empty. The nearest street had no one in sight. She kicked, twisted, but he was stronger. The situation escalated in mere seconds. Fear exploded through her, and adrenaline sharpened her focus. She looked for anything that could help her escape. A discarded piece of metal pipe lay near a trash can. With all the strength she could muster, Emma swung it at him. It struck his arm, and he grunted in surprise. She bolted, running blindly through the alley, her breath ragged, her body trembling with terror. But the man pursued. The echo of his footsteps chased her through the night, the distance between them closing with every stride. Emma stumbled out of the alley onto a busier street, screaming, waving her arms, desperately hoping someone would notice. A group of pedestrians finally reacted, rushing toward her as the man paused at the alley's edge, frustrated by the sudden attention. He melted back into the shadows before anyone could confront him. Emma collapsed on the curb, shaking violently, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The police arrived minutes later, taking her statement, comforting her, and promising to patrol the area more heavily. But the man had vanished into the night, leaving no trace, no name, no justice, at least not yet. The trauma lingered. Emma couldn't sleep without nightmares of that alley, of the man's grip, his voice, the way he seemed to anticipate her every move. She avoided walking alone, took longer, safer routes, and carried pepper spray and a small alarm at all times. Even weeks later, she would wake in the middle of the night, convinced she heard footsteps outside her apartment door, a shadow lingering in the corner of her room. The fear wasn't just of being attacked again. It was the realization of how close she had come to a nightmare she might never have escaped. Emma survived. She told her story. She fought to reclaim her sense of security. But the memory of that night remained etched into her mind forever. The alley that once cut her commute in half became a symbol of terror, a reminder that danger can be closer than you think, and that survival sometimes depends on a mixture of instinct, courage, and sheer luck. Her life continued, but she was never the same. She carried scars invisible to the eye, but deeply felt in every late-night walk, every quiet moment, every shadow that moved too quickly across her path. Because she had faced a nightmare and lived. 2. The ride that turned deadly. Lila had just left a friend's birthday party late one Saturday night. The streets were dimly lit, and she was tired from laughing, dancing, and celebrating with people she knew. Instead of calling a taxi, she decided to use a ride-hailing app, feeling safe in the convenience it offered. She entered her address, and within minutes, a black SUV pulled up at the curb. The driver was polite, introducing himself as Thomas, a calm, professional voice. He asked about her day, made small talk, and seemed completely ordinary. Lila felt reassured, dismissing the tiny flicker of unease in her gut. She slid into the back seat, buckled up, and gave him directions. The first few minutes passed without incident, but soon Thomas began taking roads that weren't on the usual route to her apartment. Lila questioned him casually. "Isn't this the long way?" Thomas smiled, calm, almost soothing. "Traffic patterns. Trust me, it's faster." A chill ran down her spine. She tried to remain composed, reaching for her phone under the seat to alert a friend. But he noticed immediately. "You don't need that," he said softly, leaning slightly toward the back seat. Lila froze. His tone was calm, but there was an edge beneath it, an underlying threat she couldn't ignore. As the SUV turned onto a deserted road, the panic that had been simmering inside Lila exploded. She realized she was no longer being taken home. She tried to open the door, but the locks had been activated automatically. Her stomach dropped. Thomas leaned back, studying her. "Relax. You'll thank me later," he said, the words casual, almost mocking. Lila's heart hammered. She remembered all the safety tips she had ever read. Never ride alone, always share your ride details, stay aware. But all of that knowledge felt useless now. The forested road ahead seemed endless, the only light coming from the SUV's headlights cutting through the dark. Desperation surged. Lila spotted a small, jagged rock on the floor of the vehicle. Gripping it tightly, she swung at the driver's partition with all her strength. Thomas flinched, momentarily distracted. She seized the opportunity, pushing at the center console, fumbling for any way to unlock the doors. Her movements were frantic, chaotic, but she refused to give up. Adrenaline sharpened her focus. She remembered a trick her friend had taught her, pulling the emergency lock on the door. She yanked at it violently, and the locks clicked. The doors were now unlocked. Thomas's eyes widened in surprise, but Lila didn't hesitate. She threw open the back door while the vehicle was slowing for a curve and leapt out, rolling onto the cold asphalt. Pain shot through her leg as she hit the ground, but she scrambled to her feet and ran. The road was empty, no streetlights, no houses, just darkness. She sprinted toward the faint glow of a distant building, hoping it was occupied. After what felt like an eternity, she reached a gas station. Shivering, bleeding, and exhausted, she banged on the glass doors, screaming for help. The attendant called the police immediately. Officers arrived within minutes, securing the area. The SUV was gone, leaving no trace of Thomas. However, a nearby surveillance camera captured him leaving the area in a hurry. License plate, partially visible. Further investigation revealed he had been linked to multiple similar incidents. A predator who targeted women using ride-hailing apps, preying on their trust and isolation. Lila survived, but the experience left permanent scars. She never used a ride-hailing app alone again, avoided being out late at night, and always carried safety tools like pepper spray and a personal alarm. Every unfamiliar car in her neighborhood, every approaching vehicle at night, sent her pulse racing. Even months later, she woke in the middle of the night with nightmares of the black SUV, the driver's calm, mocking voice, and the feeling of helplessness as the locks clicked, trapping her. The world, once familiar and safe, now carried shadows of fear she couldn't ignore. Yet Lila persevered. She spoke publicly about her experience, warning friends, co-workers, and strangers of the danger, hoping to prevent what happened to her from happening to someone else. But deep down, she knew the trauma would never fully fade. The memory of that night, the rush of panic, the narrow escape, the predator's intent, was a reminder of how fragile safety can be, and how quickly a normal night can turn into a living nightmare. 3. The friend's betrayal. Sophie had always trusted her circle of friends implicitly. She had grown up with them, shared countless memories, and believed that nothing could ever shake the bond they had built over the years. That trust would be shattered one weekend in a way she could never have imagined. It started with an invitation, a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin in the mountains, away from the city, away from work, a chance to relax and reconnect. Sophie hesitated at first. She wasn't familiar with the area, but her friends reassured her, promising it would be fun, safe, and memorable. The idea of escaping the stresses of life was too tempting to resist, and she agreed. The drive up was scenic and peaceful, filled with laughter and music. But as they approached the cabin, nestled deep in a forested area, the isolation became apparent. There were no neighbors for miles, only the dense woods and a winding dirt road leading to the property. Sophie's stomach tightened, a subtle warning she tried to ignore. The first night was ordinary. They cooked dinner, drank wine, and played board games. But as the evening wore on, Sophie noticed that one of her friends, Daniel, someone she had trusted for years, kept giving her looks that felt uncomfortable, intense, and wrong. She tried to dismiss it as imagination or overthinking, convincing herself that years of friendship couldn't harbor such darkness. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Daniel knocked on her door. Sophie opened it cautiously. "Hey, couldn't sleep," he said casually, his smile unnervingly calm. Sophie nodded politely, unsure of what to say. Without warning, he grabbed her, pinning her against the wall. Her screams were muffled by his hands, but the fear that surged through her body was raw and immediate. Sophie struggled violently, kicking, twisting, anything to escape. But Daniel was strong, and his intentions were terrifyingly clear. The cabin, once a place of laughter and camaraderie, had become a trap. The isolation that had seemed charming during the drive now made escape nearly impossible. Sophie's heart pounded as adrenaline surged through her veins. She knew she had to act fast, or risk losing control of the situation entirely. Daniel tried to subdue her, whispering, "Relax, it'll be over soon." "Don't fight." But Sophie's survival instincts kicked in. She headbutted him hard and ran toward the door, fumbling with the lock. It was jammed. Panic tightened her chest. She turned to find Daniel approaching again, his face calm, predatory, a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind. Sophie's eyes scanned the room. There was a heavy flashlight on the dresser. She grabbed it, swinging with all her strength, striking him squarely in the shoulder. He staggered back, cursing under his breath. Using the momentary advantage, Sophie bolted from the room, racing through the dark cabin, hearing his footsteps echoing behind her. She ran outside into the cold night air, the forest surrounding the cabin seeming endless. But she didn't stop. She ran toward the dirt road, hoping to reach the main highway. Each step was agony. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but fear fueled her pace. Hours later, exhausted, bruised, and terrified, Sophie found a lone patrol car on the highway. She waved frantically, collapsing onto the asphalt as the officer approached. Between gasps, she explained what had happened. The officer called backup, returned to the cabin, but Daniel had disappeared into the woods. The police never found him that night. Sophie survived, but the betrayal cut deeper than the physical danger ever could. Someone she trusted implicitly had tried to destroy her in the most personal, horrifying way possible. The trauma left lasting scars. Sleepless nights, constant vigilance around friends and acquaintances, and a fear of isolation that haunted her long after the weekend ended. Even years later, Sophie can recall the cabin's layout, the way the shadows twisted in the moonlight, and the cold, calculated look in Daniel's eyes. The memory serves as both a warning and a reminder. Horrors can come from those closest to us, and survival sometimes depends not just on awareness, but on courage, instinct, and the will to fight against someone who should have been an ally. Sophie's story is one of terror, betrayal, and survival. A nightmare that almost killed her, but ultimately made her stronger. 4. The party guest, Maya, had been invited to a friend's housewarming party in a suburban neighborhood. It was a lively evening with music, laughter, and the familiar comfort of friends she had known for years. The host had promised a small gathering, but as the night progressed, more people arrived, and the atmosphere became louder, more chaotic. Maya didn't know everyone there, but she felt safe. She trusted the environment. Familiar faces, neighbors, and friends watching out for each other. But the sense of security would prove to be fragile. As the night went on, she found herself talking to a man named Eric. He was charming, polite, and made Maya feel comfortable with his easy smile and attentive listening. She let her guard down, laughing at his jokes and engaging in conversation she might have avoided with a stranger. Later in the evening, Maya excused herself to use the bathroom. As she walked down a dimly lit hallway, Eric appeared behind her. His demeanor had shifted subtly, the charm replaced by something darker, more predatory. Before she could react, he grabbed her from behind, pressing her against the wall. Panic exploded within her. She struggled, kicking and twisting, but Eric's grip was strong. Fear and disbelief flooded her mind. How could someone she had been talking to moments ago turn into a predator so quickly? Maya's survival instincts kicked in. She remembered the safety tips she had read. Use your voice, attract attention, fight back. She screamed, pounding her fists against his chest and head, trying to create any opening. Her shouts carried down the hallway, and she could hear the faint stir of people in the living room. The distraction gave her a chance. She twisted free and bolted down the hall, stumbling toward the front door. Eric chased, but Maya was fueled by sheer terror and adrenaline. She reached the door, yanked it open, and ran into the cool night air. Neighbors who had heard the commotion rushed over. Maya screamed for help, pointing toward Eric, who hesitated on the porch. Confronted by witnesses, he finally retreated into the darkness, disappearing before the police arrived. The officers took her statement and canvassed the neighborhood, but Eric was gone. Maya's relief was tempered by a lingering, gnawing fear. The man she had trusted enough to talk to, someone she had let her guard down around, had tried to violate her in the most personal, terrifying way. Maya's trauma extended beyond the immediate incident. She began noticing shadows where there were none, flinching at unexpected touches, avoiding gatherings where she didn't know everyone intimately. Even familiar places became sites of anxiety. Hallways, crowded parties, or quiet streets at night. The fear was persistent, a reminder that danger could be disguised behind charm and friendliness. Despite the trauma, Maya worked to reclaim her life. She spoke to friends, strengthened her support network, and sought therapy to process the fear and betrayal. But the memory of Eric's sudden aggression, the cold precision of his actions, and the sheer helplessness of the moment stayed with her. Every time she enters a dim hallway or hears footsteps following her, the past resurfaces, a stark reminder that even in safe social settings, predators can lurk, waiting for the moment you feel most comfortable. Maya survived, but the emotional scars endured, a testament to the resilience required to face a nightmare and live to tell the tale. Her story is a chilling account of trust exploited, of safety violated, and the fragile line between normalcy and terror. It serves as a warning, a lesson, and a reminder of the strength required to survive such horrors. 5. The taxi trap. Hannah had stayed late at the office, finishing a project that had consumed her week. It was past midnight when she finally left the building, tired and eager to get home. With public transport unavailable, she hailed a taxi, confident in her familiarity with the routine. She stepped into the cab, gave her address, and tried to relax, assuming the driver was like any other. Routine, professional, and safe. The first few minutes were uneventful. The driver, a middle-aged man with a neutral demeanor, made small talk, asking about her job, commenting on the weather, and sharing stories about other passengers. Hannah felt a slight sense of comfort, assuming he was simply friendly. But soon she realized the route didn't match what she had expected. The driver turned onto quieter streets, darker and increasingly isolated. Hannah's stomach tightened. "Excuse me, isn't this the way to my apartment?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The man smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I know a shortcut. Trust me, you'll be home faster this way." Unease settled over her. Something about his tone, the precision with which he navigated streets she didn't recognize, made her skin crawl. She reached for her phone to call a friend, but the man noticed immediately, placing a firm hand over her wrist. "You won't need that," he said, his calm voice now carrying a threatening undertone. Hannah's mind raced. She realized she was trapped. The taxi was moving further from the familiar streets, deeper into areas that were isolated and unlit. Her pulse quickened, but panic could not overtake focus. She needed a plan. The driver attempted to take control physically, subtly guiding her toward the corner of the seat. But Hannah resisted, twisting and pushing. She spotted a heavy metal thermos in the cup holder and seized it, swinging it with desperate force at the back of the seat. It hit him squarely, startling him and creating a brief opening. Hannah lunged for the door handle, discovering the locks had been tampered with. She couldn't exit normally. Thinking quickly, she kicked at the dashboard, then at the side door repeatedly, refusing to give in to fear. The driver cursed, momentarily distracted by the chaos. Summoning every ounce of strength, Hannah swung her legs toward the open window, using it as leverage. With a final push, she tumbled out of the moving vehicle, landing hard on the asphalt, scraping her hands and knees. Pain shot through her body, but she scrambled to her feet and ran, not looking back, toward the faint glow of a 24-hour convenience store ahead. Inside, the cashier immediately noticed her disheveled appearance and frantic state. Hannah explained what had happened, and the authorities were called. Officers searched the area, but the taxi had vanished into the night, leaving only the memory of terror and the realization of how close she had come to a fate she might never have escaped. In the days that followed, Hannah grappled with a mixture of relief and persistent fear. She avoided cabs at night, only using trusted services during daylight. Every unfamiliar vehicle on the street caused her heart to race. Every passing driver's glance prompted caution. Even the familiar streets near her home no longer felt entirely safe. Sleep brought nightmares of the taxi, the man's calm, calculated smile, the sudden grasp of his hand, and the feeling of helplessness that had gripped her in those critical moments. The memory of the thermos, the impact, and the frantic escape, replayed repeatedly, a haunting reminder that danger can strike anywhere, even in what seems to be a normal, everyday situation. Despite the trauma, Hannah worked to reclaim her life. She shared her experience with friends, took self-defense classes, and carried emergency tools wherever she went. But deep down, she knew the experience had changed her forever. The sense of vulnerability, the awareness of predators lurking behind normal facades, and the constant vigilance required to survive, left an indelible mark. Hannah's story is a testament to the will to survive, to think clearly under pressure, and to act decisively when faced with unimaginable danger. She survived a nightmare that could have ended her life, and in doing so, reminds us all of the fragile line between routine safety and sudden terror. 6. The camping trip nightmare. Olivia had been looking forward to the camping trip for weeks. She and a small group of friends had rented a secluded site near a dense forest, far from the city's noise and distractions. It was meant to be a weekend of relaxation, bonding, and adventure. The anticipation of crisp night air, campfires, and starlit skies filled her with excitement. The first night went smoothly. The group shared stories around the fire, roasted marshmallows, and laughed until their cheeks hurt. But as night deepened, Olivia noticed an unfamiliar figure lingering at the edge of the campsite. He appeared to be another camper, though he didn't approach the group. Something about his stillness, the way he seemed to watch from a distance, made her uneasy. She tried to shake it off, convincing herself that isolation in nature often made shadows look more sinister than they were. But as the night progressed, the feeling of being watched grew more intense. Every rustle of leaves, every crack of a branch set her nerves on edge. Later, as the group dispersed to their tents, Olivia noticed that she had been separated from everyone else. She decided to use the restroom a short distance from her tent, unaware that the man had followed her, keeping to the shadows. Suddenly he emerged from the darkness, blocking her path. Olivia froze, her mind racing. His calm, deliberate movements were terrifying. She tried to step back, but the uneven terrain limited her escape. "You shouldn't be alone," he said softly, almost conversationally. There was no friendliness in his tone, only a chilling sense of intent. Panic surged. Olivia tried to run, but he grabbed her, pulling her into the trees. Her shouts were muffled by the dense forest. She struggled violently, kicking and pushing, trying to break free, but he was strong and prepared. Every instinct screamed at her to fight or flee in the struggle. Olivia noticed a large branch nearby. Using all her strength, she swung it at him, catching him off guard. The distraction gave her a precious moment to break his grip and sprint back toward the campsite. Her heart pounded in her ears as she ran blindly through the dark woods, tripping over roots and rocks, adrenaline propelling her forward. She finally reached the campfire area where her friends had noticed her absence. Screaming for help, they rushed to her side. The man hesitated at the edge of the clearing, but the sudden presence of witnesses forced him to retreat into the darkness. By the time authorities arrived, he had vanished completely, leaving only the terror he had caused. The police investigation later revealed that he had been spotted by campers in the area for weeks, lurking near campsites and attempting to isolate unsuspecting victims. Olivia had narrowly escaped, and the experience left lasting trauma. In the weeks and months that followed, Olivia found herself unable to enjoy nature without fear. Hiking trails, forest paths, and even her own backyard felt threatening. Sleep brought nightmares of the forest, the man's calm, predatory movements, and the sensation of being trapped in the darkness with no escape. Despite the lingering fear, Olivia worked to reclaim control over her life. She attended therapy, took self-defense courses, and learned how to trust her instincts while remaining vigilant. She shared her story publicly to warn others about the dangers of isolation and the predators who exploit it. The camping trip, once a symbol of freedom and adventure, became a vivid memory of terror, a nightmare that almost ended her life. Olivia's survival depended on quick thinking, courage, and the willingness to fight when faced with unimaginable danger. Her story is a stark reminder that even in moments meant for joy, evil can lurk in the shadows, and vigilance is often the difference between survival and tragedy. 7. The familiar stranger. Jenna had recently moved to a new city for work. Eager to meet new people, she joined a local book club that met weekly at a small cafe downtown. The group seemed friendly, welcoming, and ordinary, just what she needed to feel connected in a place that was still unfamiliar. One evening, after a particularly engaging discussion, Jenna walked to her car parked a few blocks away. The streets were quiet, dimly lit by streetlights. As she approached her car, she noticed a man walking behind her. He seemed ordinary at first, an unremarkable figure blending into the night, but instinctively she felt uneasy. Jenna tried to focus on the safety of her route, reminding herself that the city, while unfamiliar, wasn't inherently dangerous. She quickened her pace, but so did the man behind her. The realization that he was following her caused her stomach to tighten. When she reached her car, she fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking. The man was closer now, his steps deliberate. "Hey!" he called out casually, attempting to sound friendly. "Don't be scared." Jenna froze. The voice was familiar. He was a member of her book club. The familiarity should have been comforting, but it only intensified her fear. Someone she had trusted in a social, public setting now posed a real, immediate threat. Before she could react, he grabbed her from behind, trying to pull her toward the shadows of the alley next to the parking lot. Jenna screamed and struggled violently, kicking and twisting, fighting for every inch of freedom. The public nature of the space made him hesitate momentarily, giving her the chance to break free. Jenna dashed toward a nearby convenience store, her heart racing. The man tried to follow, but the presence of other pedestrians and the bright lights slowed him down. She threw open the doors and collapsed inside, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face. The store clerk immediately called the police. Officers arrived quickly, canvassing the area, but the man had vanished into the night. Later, Jenna learned that he had a history of predatory behavior, often targeting women in familiar social settings to exploit their sense of trust. The trauma of the incident was profound. Jenna struggled to feel safe in public spaces, particularly those she had previously associated with community or comfort. Every friendly voice, every familiar face, carried the potential for threat. She developed anxiety around social gatherings, constantly scanning for danger and second-guessing interactions she would have once considered harmless. Sleep was punctuated by nightmares of being followed, grabbed, and threatened by someone she had trusted. The image of the man's calm, confident demeanor replayed endlessly, a reminder that predators often hide behind ordinary appearances and friendly words. Despite the fear, Jenna refused to let the experience define her life. She joined self-defense classes, took personal safety measures seriously, and became an advocate for awareness about predatory behavior in social settings. Sharing her story publicly was both a form of catharsis and a way to protect others, a small step toward reclaiming control over her own life. The book club, once a source of connection and joy, became a symbol of betrayal and danger. Jenna survived a nightmare that could have ended her life, and her story stands as a warning. Familiarity can be deceiving, and vigilance is essential even in seemingly safe environments. Her experience serves as a chilling testament to human resilience, the ability to fight, escape, and survive when trust is weaponized against you. 8. The apartment intruder. Rachel had recently moved into a new apartment complex in a quiet part of the city. The building was modern, with security cameras, keycard access, and neighbors who seemed friendly. She felt safe for the first time in years, excited to start fresh and enjoy her independence. Bemimbo, evening. After returning from work, Rachel was alone in her apartment. She cooked dinner, watched some television, and settled in for a quiet night. Everything seemed normal until she noticed a shadow moving past the window blinds. Her pulse quickened, but she convinced herself it was a trick of the streetlights outside. Minutes later, she heard a faint click coming from the door. Her stomach dropped. The locks had been tampered with. Before she could react, a man forced his way inside. He was quiet, calm, and precise, every movement deliberate, every action calculated to instill fear. Rachel froze, disbelief and terror paralyzing her for a moment. The man spoke softly, almost soothingly. "Don't fight. It'll be easier this way." His tone was casual, but the intent behind it was unmistakable. Panic surged, adrenaline replacing fear with action. She struggled violently, pushing, kicking, and screaming, trying to reach the door or call for help. Her phone was on the counter, just out of reach. He grabbed her wrist, restraining her movements, his grip firm and unyielding. The realization that she was alone and trapped hit her like a wave. Rachel remembered the self-defense techniques she had learned over the years. She targeted vulnerable areas, eyes, throat, groin, and managed to strike him hard enough to cause momentary disorientation. Using that split second, she lunged toward the phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The man swore, frustrated by the interruption, but did not immediately leave. He attempted to overpower her again, but Rachel's fight had ignited something in her. She refused to be a victim. She grabbed a heavy kitchen knife from the counter, holding it defensively as she backed toward the door. Sirens wailed in the distance, a signal that help was on the way. The intruder cursed and fled, vanishing into the night before police arrived. Officers took her statement, secured the apartment, and later confirmed that the man had a record of breaking into residences, targeting women when they were alone. Rachel survived, but the trauma lingered. The apartment, once a symbol of independence and safety, became a constant source of anxiety. Every creak of the floor, every shadow in the corner of her vision triggered memories of that night. She installed additional security measures, carried a personal alarm, and avoided being alone whenever possible. Sleep brought nightmares of the intruder's calm, measured movements, his whispered threats, and the sense of helplessness that had enveloped her. The incident reshaped her understanding of safety. Trust, familiarity, and perceived security could be violated in an instant. Despite the fear, Rachel worked to reclaim her life. She sought therapy, strengthened her social support, and shared her story to raise awareness about home invasions and personal safety. Her experience became a cautionary tale, highlighting the importance of vigilance, preparedness, and the will to fight when confronted with danger. Rachel's survival was a combination of instinct, courage, and quick thinking. She endured a nightmare that almost destroyed her, yet emerged determined to live and protect herself. Her story serves as a stark reminder that danger can strike in the places we feel safest, and that survival often depends on resilience, awareness, and refusing to give in to fear. Natihindom, the gym encounter. Samantha had always been cautious about her personal safety. She exercised regularly, often visiting a local gym late in the evening when it was quieter. It was her sanctuary, a place to relieve stress and maintain her health. She never imagined that it could become the site of her worst nightmare. One evening, she was finishing her workout routine, alone in the locker room, when a man entered. At first, she thought nothing of it. Gyms often had members coming and going at odd hours, but something about his presence made her uneasy. He lingered near the entrance, observing her with an intensity that felt predatory. Samantha tried to focus on her routine, locking her locker and preparing to leave. As she walked toward the exit, the man followed, keeping just enough distance to avoid drawing attention, but close enough that she felt the heat of danger. Her instincts screamed at her. This wasn't ordinary behavior. When she reached the gym's hallway, the man suddenly closed the gap, grabbing her arm. Samantha's heart pounded as she tried to pull away, but he was strong and relentless. Panic surged, flooding her mind with fear and the desperate need to escape. "Don't scream," he whispered, his voice low and controlling. "No one needs to know." Her survival instincts took over. Samantha struggled violently, kicking, twisting, and striking him with every ounce of strength she possessed. She managed to break free temporarily, running toward the main exit where the gym's front doors led to a lit parking lot. The man pursued her, relentless, until she reached the lot, where a few other members were leaving. She screamed, waving her arms, drawing attention. The presence of witnesses caused the attacker to hesitate, buying her crucial seconds to reach her car. Once inside, Samantha locked the doors, her hands shaking violently, her chest heaving with adrenaline. The man retreated, disappearing into the shadows of the empty parking lot. She immediately called 911, explaining what had happened. Officers arrived swiftly, securing the area, but the man had vanished without a trace. The trauma lingered long after the incident. Samantha found herself hesitant to return to the gym, to walk alone at night, or even to trust strangers in public spaces. The memory of his calculated, predatory behavior haunted her. The way he had followed her, isolated her, and attempted to control the situation. Sleep brought nightmares of the encounter, the dimly lit hallway, the man's grip, the whispered threats, and the terrifying closeness of danger. Everyday routines that had once been mundane now carried a weight of fear and caution. Samantha refused to let the trauma define her life. She installed additional security measures, attended self-defense classes, and shared her experience with friends and family to raise awareness about personal safety, particularly for women exercising alone in public spaces. The gym, once a place of comfort and health, became a symbol of the unpredictability of danger. Samantha survived a nightmare that could have ended her life, and her story stands as a powerful reminder of vigilance, courage, and resilience. Her experience teaches that even familiar, seemingly safe environments can hide predators, and that survival often depends on instinct, quick thinking, and the will to fight against overwhelming fear. Samantha endured the unthinkable and emerged determined to reclaim her life, proving that even in the face of unimaginable horror, strength and perseverance can prevail.